Hey there, I hope you're doing well. My name is Arya, and today we're going to look at some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy Reddit stories, consider liking, subscribing, and maybe hitting that notification bell too. Let's get started with today's first story. Much love, everyone. Today's first story comes from husband seeks revenge on cheating wife after open marriage backfires. My wife, who is 29 years old and beautiful, told me she wants to have relationships outside of our marriage. She was very clear about it, and it was easy for me to understand to start things off. I had planned a fancy dinner at one of our favorite fancy restaurants. I made sure everything was perfect with nice, white tablecloths and a great selection of wine. I even bought her a diamond necklace. She had been hitting it, spending almost $1,000 on it, but I did know I would soon need to make that money. Back during dinner, I could tell she was feeling uneasy. Our usual relaxed conversations had a bit of tension. She seemed distracted, looking around the room like she was searching for something or someone. Normally, when she looked at me, her gaze was steady, but now it wandered without focus. Finally, after we finished the main course and had more wine, she brought up what was on her mind. Honey, there's something I've been thinking about for a while now, and I think it's time to talk about it. I stopped, stowed, carefully putting my wine glass down. What could she be talking about? Her tone had changed, becoming serious like she does when something important is on her mind. I started thinking about what she might say. Was she going to say she was ready to have a baby? We had talked about it before, agreeing to wait until we were more settled in our careers and finances. Well, we had achieved those goals and I was excited about the idea of starting a family, but her avoiding eye contact suggested it was something else. Normally when you talk about starting a family, you're all smiles and can't look away from each other, but that night something was off. Honey, we need to talk, Andrea began, a serious look on her face. That told me this wasn't just any conversation. I've been thinking a lot, and this is really important to me. She continued, her voice trembling a bit. I need to find out more about who I am outside of us. I think it'll help me be a better partner for you in the long run. I was stunned, my mind spinning. What are you saying? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I leaned forward, trying to catch her eye, but she wouldn't look at me. I want to see other people, Rob. I want us to be okay with this, to avoid hurting each other down the line. That hit me like a ton of bricks. My heart started pounding, and I could feel my face getting hot. What do you mean by other people? I demanded, needing her to spell it out. For me, my voice was louder now, filled with a mix of disbelief and anger. Are you talking about dating other men? She paused, biting her lip. Yes, that might be part of it. She finally said. The room spun around me. You're telling me you want to date other men, and you expect me to be okay with it? I couldn't keep the frustration from boiling over. Andrea, how could you think this is okay? She reached across the table, trying to grab my hand, but I pulled away. I love you, Rob. That hasn't changed. I just need to explore this part of me. It's something I have to do. Her words felt like a betrayal, and no matter how calmly she tried to explain, I couldn't wrap my head around it. As we sat there, the noise of the restaurant fading into the background, I realized our lives might never be the same again. What on earth are you talking about, Andrea? I couldn't keep the shock out of my voice. You want to have an affair, and you expect me to just nod and agree while you go off with other men? Jesus Christ. My words were louder than I intended, and I could feel the stares of other diners burning into us. Keep your voice down, honey, Andrea hissed. We don't need the whole place listening in. It hit me. Then she'd picked this crowded restaurant on purpose, figuring I wouldn't make a scene in public. She had set me up, and I was completely caught off guard. My stomach turned and I felt sick, like I might throw up everything we'd just eaten. The only thing I could think to ask was, why, Andrea? Why other men? I pressed on, needing answers. What does explore yourself even mean? Are you saying you want to sleep with other men? Are you leaving me? She looked at me, her eyes soft but firm. No, Rob, I'm not leaving you. There are a lot of reasons why I feel I need to do this. Please believe me when I say I love you deeply. You're my soulmate. I see a future with us growing old and starting a family, but right now there are things I'm missing, things I need to find out about myself. I'm asking you just for a few months to let me explore this. After that I'll be all yours again. I promise. Her words were supposed to be reassuring, but they hung in the air between us, heavy and uncertain. Could I really accept this? Could our marriage survive it? The thought tormented me as I sat there, trying to digest what she was asking of me. This had to be the worst thing I could imagine. During our 5th anniversary dinner, my wife blindsided me by saying she wanted to start seeing other men. She expected me to just accept this, nodding as if nothing was wrong, and promised that afterwards everything would go back to normal. Like nothing happened. She even claimed it would make her a better wife. I was speechless, my mind a complete blank, and I couldn't even breathe right, feeling like I was in some sort of dream. I stood up, placed my napkin neatly on the table, and finished my wine in one gulp. Without a word, I put the glass down, turned around, and walked out. Honey, where are you going? She called after me. I don't know, I answered without turning back, but you should probably take a cab home. I made my way out of the restaurant, found my car, and just drove. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to get away. My head was pounding, the pain starting from the back of my skull and spreading everywhere, making it hard to think about anything else. I drove aimlessly, lost in the noise of the engine and the blur of the passing streetlights. Time and place didn't matter anymore. The next morning I woke up in my car, my head pounding and my surroundings unfamiliar. I got out, stretched, and looked around, trying to convince myself last night was just a bad dream. First things first, I desperately needed to use the bathroom and find a huge cup of coffee. I also needed a plan before I could even think about going home after taking care of business behind a nearby bush. I got back in the car, fired up the engine, and headed out in search of that much-needed coffee. I found a small diner, ordered breakfast with my coffee, and sat down to think things through. Letting my wife have relationships with other men was off the table. It would definitely be the end of our marriage, despite everything she said last night. I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't the woman I thought I married. Maybe she was having some kind of breakdown, dreaming up ideas that were completely out of touch with reality. I'm no psychiatrist, just a guy who's incredibly confused right now. I checked my phone, which I had turned off sometime during the night. Turning it back on, I saw several texts and missed calls from Andrea. Please inform us if you are enthusiastic about this narrative. To indicate that you found the video to be enjoyable, please press A. If not, press B. I am truly motivated by your feedback to collect additional stories that are both meaningful and inspiring. She was worried about where I was and how I was doing. Right then I didn't feel ready to go home or to talk to her, but I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. I decided not to answer her messages just yet. After gulping down several cups of coffee and digging into a hearty breakfast of eggs and bacon, I sketched out a basic plan for what to do next. It was time to deal with the situation waiting for me at home. When I pulled into the driveway, Andrea rushed out the front door, her face filled with worry. Honey, where were you all night? I was so scared, thinking you might have had an accident or something worse, she said, trying to kiss me. I stepped back and said firmly, Andrea, I need to shower and freshen up after that. We need to sit down and really talk about this exploring yourself idea you mentioned last night. I walked past her and headed straight to the bedroom to get out of the suit I'd been wearing all night. I took a long hot shower, using the time to rehearse what I needed to say. Doubts swirled in my mind. I had to figure out if I still had a wife, or if this was her way of saying goodbye. Maybe this was just a test to see how committed I was. Trying to understand what she was thinking was driving me crazy. I loved her, no question. I married her, didn't I? We had a big, beautiful wedding and celebrated with a trip across Europe. I had never even thought about being with another woman. I was all in, but now it seemed like she wasn't on the same page. Luckily, we didn't have kids, which made things a bit simpler, Whether or not that would change depended entirely on how the next few days and weeks unfolded after changing into clean clothes. I headed into the kitchen to fix myself another cup of coffee. I grabbed a notepad and a pen, noticing Andrea sitting at the kitchen island, her eyes locked on me. I tried to appear calm, but inside my emotions were in turmoil, coffee in hand. I took a seat across from her. I started, "All right, Andrea, could you please explain again why you want to pursue relationships outside our marriage?" Andrea looked straight at me and said, "Honey, I need to experience validation as a woman right now. I don't feel like my needs are being met. I want to explore what those needs are and see if I can find fulfillment on my own. So you're uncertain about your needs and you're seeking to discover them." I summarized, trying to keep my tone steady. "Also, are you planning to step away from our relationship temporarily to find what you're looking for?" "No, honey. I won't leave. I'll remain here in our home with you," Andrea replied quickly. "However, I need the freedom to establish my own schedule and do things at my own pace. When do you think you'd like to embark on this exploration and adopt your new schedule?" "Andrea? Well, I suppose any time would work," she responded, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "Do you agree with my decision?" "No, I don't agree with any of this, Andrea. I said firmly when we got married, we promised to be partners and lovers for life. Now you want to seek other lovers. What am I supposed to make of this? It feels like you're checking out of our marriage, honey." "It's not like that," Andrea said, her voice filled with frustration. "I need to find a connection. That's been missing for a couple of years. Now our lives have become all about work. I don't feel appreciated by you like I did when we first got married." "Appreciation? My God, everything I do for you," I retorted, feeling my anger start to bubble up. "I've been busting my back to provide for us and to build the future we dreamed about when we got married. We've nearly paid off this house, for crying out loud. I knew I had to address the most burning issue. Are you planning to have relationships with other men?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Honey, I can't say for certain what I'll do. If it feels right with the right person, I might consider it," she responded, avoiding my gaze. "So you're thinking about infidelity?" Then I pressed, unable to hide my incredulity. "It's not infidelity, Rob. It's not cheating." "If you know about it," she replied calmly. My blood pressure was through the roof. I took a deep breath and sipped my coffee, wishing it were something stronger. I needed to keep my cool to handle this conversation right. "Let me get this straight, Andrea," I said, trying to make sense of it. "Are you planning to meet other men, go out with them, and maybe even become intimate? Meanwhile, you'll still be living here with me. Is that correct, honey?" "It's not that straightforward. I'm not sure yet," Andrea replied, her voice uncertain. "It sounds pretty straightforward to me," I countered. "What about us? Are we just supposed to put our marriage on hold? Do you expect us to still be intimate while you're exploring this?" "Of course, Rob, we're a family, you and me. I love you deeply, and I want us to stay a family. This is just something I need to do for myself," she said, her eyes pleading for understanding. "And how often do you plan on doing this, Andrea? Every weekend? Several times a week, every night? Just how far are you planning to take this exploration?" "I haven't decided yet, honey." "Why are you so focused on the details?" Andrea asked, sounding frustrated. "Well, I need to know what my life is going to look like while you're out meeting, dating, and being with your new partners. I don't have a girlfriend, Andrea, at least not yet." I said, the last part slipping out more bitterly than I intended. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, struggling to contain my anger. "Andrea, I need some clarity before we leave here today. Have you genuinely made up your mind about this? Have you considered what this will do to our marriage?" Andrea nodded, but she didn't directly answer my question. It appeared she hadn't given much thought to how I might feel. She hadn't considered my opinions. Then she uttered the sentence, "That would our future. If you love me, you will let me do this." I responded firmly. If you love me, Andrea, you won't go through with this. This is my ultimatum. Unfaithfulness, even with prior notice, is a marriage breaker. Now my plan needed to take form. Here are my conditions. Non-negotiable. If you want to engage with other men, you must move out. I won't share a home with you, while you date and have sex with others. Bringing them here is out of the question. You'll have to find alternative accommodation, honey. Where am I supposed to live? Perhaps you can stay with one of your friends like Jessica from school. You've spent time with her. She's divorced and alone, right? Ask her if you can stay with her for a while. If that doesn't work, you can rent a short-term apartment. You'll be responsible for all expenses, utilities, and your car payment. Andrea worked as a grade 3 teacher in an elementary school and earned a substantial income. I, on the other hand, was a chartered accountant specializing in forensic auditing for a large firm, also enjoying a good income complete with annual bonuses. From what she had said, it appeared that I wasn't meeting all her needs in our relationship. Andrea seemed to sense my willingness to compromise for the first time as she made eye contact, thinking she had one. I continued, so, if you're interested in having an open marriage, I suppose I'll need to be patient. While you pursue your extramarital affairs, will you eventually return home to me, Andrea, honey? Of course I will. I love you deeply. You're my husband, and I want us to build a family together. I countered, what am I supposed to do, while you're out having intimate relationships with other men? Do you expect me to remain faithful to you? Should I wait for you to finish with your boyfriends and then welcome you back with open arms and love? Have you considered the impact on me at all? I want you as my husband, honey, and only you, regardless of what I do while I'm away for a while. It won't change my feelings for you once I come back. I want you to be my husband and the father of my children. I couldn't help but find this an odd way of expressing her love. She had already acknowledged that I wouldn't permit her to bring her boyfriends into our home, and she seemed to view that as a victory. She could enjoy her time with other men without fear of my interference. All right, you need to figure out where you're going to stay, and let me know this week, but for now we have some things to arrange here. I want you to move your clothes and belongings to the spare bedroom. I'm not sure I can share the same bed with you at the moment. Your plan is too painful, and I feel like you're leaving me even if you haven't explicitly said so. So tell me, Andrea. What should I make of all this? Andrea remained silent, possibly starting to realize that I wouldn't simply accept this without question. She might have been taken aback by my request to have her leave our bed, but what did she honestly expect? Did she think I was a complete pushover, ready to passively allow her to run off and have affairs, then return home to play the role of a happily married couple, eventually having children and carrying on with life as if nothing had happened? Not a chance. Andrea happened to be friends with another teacher, Jessica, and I suspect, Ed, that some of these misguided ideas might be coming from her. Jessica, a divorced grade 4 teacher at the same school as my wife, was caught cheating on her husband with multiple partners, leading to her being kicked out 2 years ago. At 35 years old, Jessica was an attractive woman with an appealing physique. Unfortunately, she had a penchant for sleeping with any man who flashed a smile her way. I had a strong suspicion that Jessica was influencing Andrea's desire to explore herself before starting a family. For me, the reality was simple. If Andrea explored too much, there wouldn't be a family, at least not with me. All that would remain was a divorce. I rose from the table and began walking away. Andrea questioned, "Is that all, Rob? You want me to move out?" "Yeah, for now. Don't misunderstand me, Andrea. I don't want you to go through with any of this. We made a commitment to monogamy when we got married, and you're planning to break that commitment. So what exactly do you expect me to do? Do you think I'll just sit idly by while you engage in relationships with other men? If you want an open marriage, then I suppose I'll have the same option." Andrea was left speechless, and I departed before our discussion escalated into a shouting match. I grabbed my car keys and headed out of the house. "Honey, where are you going?" she called after me. "I'm not certain right now, but don't forget to move your belongings to the spare room and start looking for a place to stay." Remember, you won't be engaging in extramarital affairs until you've moved out." I replied as I left, intentionally slamming the door harder than usual, while I briefly contemplated driving to Jessica's apartment and confronting her. I knew I needed to set aside my anger and frustration for the time being. It was Andrea who had initiated this messed up situation, and she could deal with the inconvenience it brought besides. I suspected that Jessica might be more than willing to take Andrea in, and I had to resist the urge to confront her physically. On Monday morning I was up and out of my office before Andrea even woke up. I had a significant amount of work to do on my plan. Considering Andrea's intentions, I had no intention of tolerating her infidelity, since she seemed to have made up her mind about our marriage. I had to take action. It hurt that she believed she could engage in extramarital affairs, thinking I'd foolishly stand by, let her do it, and then act like everything was fine when she returned. What if she came back with an STD or worse, pregnant? No way, I wouldn't allow it. Step 1 was reaching out to my lawyer. My lawyer happened to be a friend who handled various legal matters such as real estate and wills. I didn't expect him to handle the divorce directly, but he could provide a referral. He did just that, recommending a competent divorce attorney from his firm. I had a meeting scheduled with her that same afternoon. It was a tough conversation, but my new lawyer was an experienced litigator and well-versed in our state's laws. I didn't want this divorce to become acrimonious. In fact, I was content with a fair 50-50 split of our asset sets. Neither of us had much when we married, and we'd both worked hard to build a comfortable life together until now. So I was willing to divide things evenly. I wasn't completely heartless, and battling over assets would only prolong the divorce process. The assets weren't worth holding on to. If it meant dealing with a cheating wife, the necessary paperwork would be prepared and held until I had evidence of my wife's infidelity. Until then, this was just an initial move. On my part, the week seemed to drag on. I made an effort to spend as little time at home as possible, going out every evening, mostly to the gym, to relieve stress. I noticed that Andrea was spending a lot of time with Jessica. On Thursday, she informed me that she'd be staying with Jessica for a couple of weeks until she found a more suitable place. I knew it would be a convenient setup for her to be with her boyfriends. Without any interruptions from me, it seemed like Jessica might be entertaining her own boyfriends simultaneously, turning it into quite a mess. This situation was just incredibly messed up. On Saturday, just 1 week after celebrating our 5th wedding anniversary, my wife made her decision to engage in extramarital affairs evident by packing her belongings into her car and preparing to leave. However, she hesitated just before her departure. "Honey, I don't want to leave. Are you absolutely sure we can't find a way to work things out, so I can stay?" she pleaded. "I love you deeply, and I genuinely want to improve our marriage." I couldn't help but feel exasperated as I responded, "Andrea, if you truly loved me and wanted our marriage to improve, you wouldn't go through with this. I do want you to stay here at home with me, but I cannot condone you being intimate with other men while still being my wife. I love you, but I won't tolerate that. If you won't consider going to marriage counseling to address our issues, I'm not sure what else I can say, so please go." While she loaded her belongings into her car, I went to the hardware store in my own car to purchase new locks for the house. I replaced 3 locks and changed the security code for the garage door opener throughout Saturday night, and all of Sunday I remained at home staring at the walls, hoping that Andrea would come to her senses in return. The following week proved to be exceptionally challenging for me. I visited the gym daily and took up running again in an attempt to alleviate my stress. At times I found myself sinking into deep depression, yearning to go to Andrea and beg her to come back. Intellectually, I still struggled to comprehend the fact that my wife was leaving me to engage in extramarital affairs while we remained married. It made me feel like a colossal failure. Was I truly so inadequate that my wife was willing to openly exhibit her infidelity? Apparently, that was the case. I turned to the internet to research the psychology of infidelity and why spouses cheat on each other. I was astonished to discover that approximately 40% of married individuals engage in infidelity. What was even more surprising was that nearly 90% of them choose to stay in their marriages. Often infidelity is quietly tolerated by the other spouse, especially when children are involved, making it easier for them to accept the unfaithfulness and continue as if it weren't happening. Many wives who cheat claim to still love their husbands and families, but seek excitement outside the marriage, something they feel is lacking at home. Many women who engage in affairs express that their homes demand a great deal of effort. The daily grind of maintaining a family, juggling kids' activities, and dealing with mundane chores makes sex and intimacy with their husbands seem dull. They yearn for excitement with a lover who focuses solely on them without immediately discussing kids or errands after sex. Perhaps the key to a successful marriage lies in treating one's wife as if she were having an affair minus the divorce, simply enjoy the physical aspect. I contemplated the idea of trying to pick up my wife at the club she and Jessica frequented. People have affairs for various reasons: a lack of sexual satisfaction in the relationship, an absence of passion, or a loss of connection between spouses, sometimes even as retaliation for their partner's infidelity. Some women claim they cheat to salvage their marriages, though I'm skeptical about that. Nevertheless, it's what researchers studying marital infidelity have reported: marriage is intricate and relationships require effort. Open marriages where both spouses consent to having other relationships and sexual partners seldom survive in the long run. Emotional attachments form, feelings are inevitably hurt, and most who end up divorcing. Polyamorous marriages are equally complicated, especially when children are involved. The threat of introducing a sexually transmitted disease into the relationship is a constant concern. Personally, I believe monogamy is the best approach in a marriage. If both partners don't agree with it, they should reconsider their commitment to each other or look for different individuals to be in a relationship with. Did I neglect my wife and push her away? Did I fail to provide her with enough attention while I focused on building a life for us? Was I mistaken? I'm uncertain. What I do know is that I felt unhappy about my wife leaving our home to engage in extramarital affairs. She sought things she believed I wasn't providing, but I didn't see her actions leading to an improvement in our marriage, and so the following week passed by slowly once more. I refrained from calling my wife, and Andrea only sent one text requesting that I forward her mail to her new address. Her communication gave no indication of her desire to salvage our marriage. It was all business, clearly. She was actively pursuing her plan to find a boyfriend, or possibly even two, for some enjoyment. The thought crossed my mind to tail her from her apartment to wherever she and Jessica were headed, just to find out who she was meeting. I drove past the apartment multiple times, but resisted the urge to stop. I realized I couldn't subject myself to that. I needed to let her make her decision, or she would never truly be my wife again. With each passing day, the likelihood of her returning diminished. Furthermore, the longer the situation deadbed on, the less inclined I was to take her back. A month elapsed with minimal communication between us when unexpectedly Andrea showed up at the house unannounced when her key didn't work in the lock. She rang the doorbell and knocked. I answered the door, maintaining a stoic expression. "Andrea, what brings you here today?" She replied, "Honey, my key doesn't seem to work in the lock." "What's going on?" I responded matter-of-factly. "That's because I changed all the locks." I blocked her from entering when she attempted to come inside. "What do you want, Andrea?" I inquired. She replied, "I came to retrieve a few things I left behind when I moved in with Jess." Once again, her visit wasn't about seeing me. It was purely business, focused on her belongings, with a little regard for me or the pain she was causing. She didn't seem to realize the hurt I might be experiencing. Was she that naive or deluded to think I wouldn't care about her sexual encounters with other men, or that I'd eventually take her back? "There are some boxes in the garage with your things that I gathered from around the house." "Why did you do that, honey?" She asked. I let her inside since, after all, it was still partly her home. We proceeded to the garage, where she saw numerous boxes filled with her belongings ready for her to take. How long are you planning to stay with Jessica? I inquired. She replied. Jessica's been really supportive. I'll be with her for a bit longer. I'm sure it'll only be a few more months, and then I'll be back a better wife to you, honey. Then we can start a family together. I couldn't help but roll my eyes internally at her comment and feel a sense of disgust. How could she believe that her involvement with other men would somehow make her a better wife and prepare her for motherhood? I had entirely different thoughts on the matter. So have you found a boyfriend yet? I asked bluntly. Andrea blushed in response, and I didn't need an answer. I already knew she finally admitted Jess, and I have been on some dates with guys from the club we go to, but that's about it. I couldn't resist probing further. How's the Z with your new boyfriends? Andrea turned even redder and began searching through the boxes for her belongings. I left the garage and returned to the kitchen to have my coffee and read the newspaper. A few minutes later, she emerged carrying a sizable bag and surveyed the kitchen. Perhaps she expected the house to be in disarray after her departure, to her disappointment. It was quite the opposite. I had enlisted the services of a cleaning crew to visit 3 times a week, so the place was impeccably clean. There were no towering stacks of dirty dishes, no heaps of empty beer bottles, and certainly no mountains of soiled laundry. No, the house was in perfect order, and I was focused on keeping myself composed, despite the fact that my wife had left me to pursue relationships with other men. Is there anything else you need, Andrea? I inquired, sensing her curiosity about the situation here without her. She replied, so honey, have you been okay since I started staying with Jess? I'm fine. I responded. I've been quite busy with work and I'm frequently on the road. Concerned. She probed further, honey, have you been getting out at all, or have you been staying home alone? And there it was, the pivotal question I had anticipated. It was time to introduce a small twist into the conversation and observe her reaction. I've been trying to keep myself occupied, I explained. I joined a cycling group that meets twice a week for organized rides. We start from a designated point and ride together for 40 to 60 m. It's been quite enjoyable, and I've met many new people. They're a fantastic bunch. Typically, we head somewhere for a beer and a burger afterward, as all that riding really works up an appetite. I made a conscious effort to maintain my distance from excessive alcohol, as it wouldn't serve my well-being in any way. My weight had dropped by 15 pounds in recent weeks, partly due to exercise and partly due to the stress that her actions had inflicted upon me. Regular physical activity was perhaps the only thing preventing a complete mental breakdown. She responded with a tone that hinted at more interest in my activities than her initial question implied. What I gathered was that she wanted to know if I had started meeting other women as Andrea drove away from the house. She might have begun to realize that her plan wasn't unfolding as smoothly as she had anticipated. It was possible that her loyal husband could meet someone else and decide he no longer needed to remain married to her. Her quest to find a boyfriend to compensate for the attention she believed her husband had failed to provide might carry more significant repercussions than she had initially thought. I later discovered that Andrea had been dating 2 men from the club she frequented with Jessica and had engaged in intimate encounters with both on multiple occasions. However, neither seemed interested in spending quality time with her beyond their rendezvous between her legs. Both men were married and simply seeking casual fun, with Andrea being their source of entertainment, a classic case of pump and dump by the 2-month mark. I had come to terms with the demise of my marriage and was prepared to initiate the next phase of my plan. Andrea had remained out of contact with me for weeks, clearly indicating that she had no thoughts concerning me or our marriage. She was free to pursue her desires, exhibiting no inclination or desire to return home, even if she did consider returning. It would come with a myriad of conditions, and I was uncertain whether I would accept her back. Adding to my reservations, I discovered that she had taken a vacation to the Dominican Republic with one of her boyfriends during the school break. They had indulged in a sun-soaked getaway, supposedly working on their tans and other indulgences. If this was her notion of strengthening our marriage through infidelity, well, it left much to be desired. The influence of Jessica's persuasive narratives depicting me as a neglectful husband who had disregarded my wife, had taken hold of Andrea's mindset before she decided to abandon our marriage. Now she resided in a 2-bedroom apartment with her discontented divorced friend, and her reputation among fellow teachers and family members was deteriorating rapidly when Andrea's mother discovered that her daughter had ventured to the Caribbean with another man. She reached out to me inquiring about the reason for our separation. She likely assumed that we had been embroiled in marital conflicts. I revealed to her that her daughter had left me to engage in sexual relations with other men, a revelation she found incredulous. I urged her to speak directly with Andrea to the truth. Andrea's mother engaged her in conversation, asking Andrea, "Why did you leave your home? What's happening between you and Robert? Is he mistreating you to this?" Andrea replied, "No, Mom. He isn't mistreating me, but he doesn't provide the excitement I currently seek from a man. I don't feel desired or attractive to him. I need that feeling to feel wanted, so I'm seeking it elsewhere. For now I want to have some fun before Rob and I start a family. I plan to return to him in a few months when he will appreciate me more and everything will be fine." You'll see, Andrea's mother was taken aback by her response and earnestly cautioned, "Dear, if you engage in extramarital affairs, Robert will not want you as his wife. Cheating on him is the surest way to end your marriage." "Do you not comprehend that I know that Rob loves me, Mom?" Andrea retorted, confidently. "He understands my needs. I'll return home in a few months, perhaps a year at most, and then we'll start a family, dear. You must come to your senses and return home now," her mother implored, "or there won't be a marriage or a husband to return to, and there certainly won't be any children with him. Do you understand me, Mom? I am confident that Rob loves me." Andrea insisted. Remaining resolute in her beliefs, even her mother's earnest efforts failed to instill reason in her. Therefore, embracing the "what's good for the goose is good for the gander" mentality, I resolved to explore the possibility of a life without her. It had been approximately 3 months since Andrea's departure, and it was time for me to move forward. Summoning the courage, I asked one of the women I knew from cycling for a date, primarily seeking female companionship and a break from the monotonous routine I had endured. Since my wife had moved out, my daily routine consisted of work, the gym, cycling and sleep, and it repeated day after day as I waited for this madness to come to an end. That was my life. A part of me hoped that Andrea would come to her senses and put an end to this absurdity by returning home. However, that seemed unlikely. I had to confront the reality that she probably wouldn't come back, at least not as the wife I had married or the woman I once knew. It appeared she was savoring her newfound freedom and seeking the excitement and validation as a woman that had been missing from our marriage. Echoing the motivation psychologist ATT tribute to married women who cheat on their husbands, so I decided to attempt to arrange a date without coming across as overly desperate or just hitting on someone randomly that might be too peculiar. I thought I wanted to become acquainted with the people in my cycling group and have them get to know me before considering inviting one of the women on a date. I wanted it to be a genuine connection, not a pity date. Most of my cycling friends were aware of my separation from my wife, and I suspected that some might even know about Andrea's active dating life in a city. Not that large word tends to get around when I asked Diane, one of the women in the group, to join me for a tea or a drink. I was pleasantly surprised when she accepted. I suggested going out on a casual Saturday night to a nice place and planned for us to go kayaking on a nearby lake. Before dinner, I had some experience with kayaking from a few years back, so I knew the ropes. Diane had never kayaked before, but she expressed her interest and we agreed on the plan, so it became a date. We had a wonderful time kayaking, covering around 10 miles over about 3 hours. Afterward, we headed to a charming restaurant for a satisfying meal and drinks. I ordered a craft beer with steak and French fries, while Diane opted for white wine with a pasta dish. It was a relaxed and informal setting, free from any pressure. We wrapped up the evening with ice cream from a waterfront boardwalk stand, and I drove her home. I told her I had a fantastic time, intending to give her a kiss on the cheek, but she surprised me by leaning in and planting a kiss on my lips. It was a delightful and unexpected moment. I didn't want to appear overly eager, so I waited until our regular Tuesday cycling meetup to arrange another date. To my surprise, Diane expressed concern that my lack of contact might have meant I didn't enjoy our time together. I quickly assured her that the opposite was true. I had a fantastic time and truly relished our outing and being in her company. We scheduled a Saturday date this time. For a round of golf, I had read online about the delicate balance of texting and calling to maintain someone's interest. Men who excessively message or call women are often seen as overly needy, which tends to drive women away. So on Friday, I sent Diana a text expressing my anticipation for our Saturday golf game and suggesting a time for me to pick her up, while also offering the option for her to meet me at the golf club. If she preferred, she kindly requested that I pick her up, so we settled on an early afternoon time. Our time on the golf course was a lot of fun. Even though neither of us possessed professional level golf skills, that evening we had dinner at my place, where we enjoyed a barbecue and a bottle of wine after our meal as the night grew late. I prepared to drive her home. However, she took the car keys from my hand placed them on the kitchen counter, and asked to see the bedroom. The following morning, I woke up beside a stunning woman with her arm draped over my chest. Diane had gorgeous long dark hair, captivating green eyes and flawless skin. A small scar on her chin from a bicycle accident added character to her lovely face. She stood tall at around 5 feet 11 inches in maintaining a slender figure. She probably weighed around 140 pounds and was in great shape. Her occupation as a nurse in the pediatric department of the hospital spoke volumes about her compassion for others. She came across as authentic, exuding a magnetic charm that drew me to her from the moment we met. We enjoyed breakfast on my patio, and our conversation eventually shifted toward my plans and the possibility of divorce. It was a sensitive topic, but I understood her need to know my intentions before investing emotionally in our connection. After all, no woman wants to invest time in a man who might reconcile with his estranged wife in a few weeks. When I explained the peculiar way Andrea had just justified her departure to Diane, her expression confirmed what I had already suspected. She believed Andrea wasn't coming back. I think that nudge from Diane helped me move forward with the next phase of my plan. On Monday morning, I contacted my lawyer and had her assign an investigator to the case. I wanted to determine how many men Andrea was involved with before presenting her with divorce papers. It turned out, she was dating multiple men, mostly married, and they would often gather at Jessica's apartment to continue their partying after leaving various bars and clubs around the city. 2 weeks later, Andrea received the divorce petition, marking the beginning of a tumultuous period. That night she drove to the house to confront me. When I answered the doorbell, I was met by my estranged wife holding a large brown envelope, her face filled with distress. I inquired, "Andrea, what brings you here tonight?" She responded, "Honey, a guy delivered these documents to me today." "Why did you file for divorce?" "I told you I would be home soon. Even this week we can start working on that baby we talked about." I invited her in and asked her to take a seat in the kitchen, stating, "It's a bit late for that, Andrea. I told you when you left that I didn't want you to go, but you went anyway." She attempted to explain, "Honey, I told you that I needed to find out who I was and feel good about myself." I interrupted with a hint of sarcasm. "So do you feel good about yourself now? Are you validated as a woman? Have you explored your sexuality and new relationship? Ships met exciting people, had your fair share of intimate encounters?" Growing agitated, I continued, "Because it sure looks to me like you have. I've had virtually no communication from you since you left our home. You didn't even call me on my birthday, probably too busy with one of your boyfriends in the Dominican Republic. That week your mother called me wondering why you didn't even call her on Mother's Day. Have you spent this entire time pursuing physical pleasure?" She pleaded, "Honey, I love you very much and I realize I may have gone too far. I'm coming home today." I firmly responded, "No, you're not, honey. What are you talking about? I'm still your wife, And this is still my house. I'm going back to Jess's place to collect my things, and I'll be home in a few hours. I corrected her. Ah, no you're not. Did you read through all the documents in that package you received at the back? There's a judge's order specifying that you cannot come within 500 feet of this house until the divorce is finalized. Technically you're currently in violation of that court order. I'm not going to make an issue out of it, but you need to leave now and we can address this matter in court to sort out the details. Andrea was slowly coming to terms with the seriousness of our wedding vows, which included commitments like love, honor, cherished faithfulness, and the crucial aspect of fidelity. I made it clear to her that this house held no sentimental value for me if she desired it. That was perfectly fine. It's almost paid off, so my half is approximately worth $150,000. She could have it for that amount. However, if she wasn't willing to pay that sum, we would sell it and split the proceeds from the sale. It was a straightforward arrangement, but for the time being she was not moving back. While I remained in the house, I escorted her to the door closed and locked it behind her. A month later, we managed to avoid the need for a court appearance and quietly settled. Our divorce, Andrea received half of our assets as she was legally entitled to. We sold the house, and I moved on with my life. Andrea resumed her new routine, but I heard from a friend that her school, a charter school, had advised her to keep her personal life more discreet. Apparently, some parents had become aware of her involvement with multiple men in the area and were uncomfortable with her teaching their children, especially among the mothers who were quite outspoken about it. In private, it appeared that some of the fathers might have been among her lovers. Subsequently, Andrea was diagnosed with a sexually transmitted disease, not life-threatening, but necessitating a year of abstinence. This was not a significant concern, given that she was already pregnant. It seemed that one of her partners had successfully fathered the child. Andrea's negligence in consistently taking her birth control pill, frequent alcohol consumption, and the absence of condom use were contributing factors. The father remained unidentified but bore an uncanny resemblance to one of the teachers at her school, a married man. My divorce was officially concluded and I was free from Andrea. It has been approximately a year since all the turmoil with Andrea began. I purchased a new house, received a promotion at work, and, most importantly, Diane and I are now living together. We are excited to announce two things. First, we will be getting married this summer, and second, we are expecting to become parents around Christmas. I'm going to turn this one over to you. What do you make of this situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, support, and time mean the world to me. So, thank you so much for being part of this. I really appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.